It's the Fellowship of the Geek Show, a weekly podcast about comics, the comic book industry, and other geek pop culture. Music courtesy of Manny the Martyr. And now, on with the show! Hey everybody, it's the Fellowship of the Geeks podcast. My name is Thomas Chick, and joining me for this episode is Mike Marlowe.
Hey gang.
And Les Webster.
Hello all.
How are you doing, guys?
Doing alright.
Doing good here too. And you?
I'm doing okay. Hope everybody out there is doing alright. I'm afraid to ask what's been going on this past week.
Oh, well, no. It's all good. I'm actually going to bring up, and I have brought this particular thing up before, but I don't remember if it was in this context, and it's been a while. So I'm doing it anyway. I'm at the point where I'm about to get caught up from being 3 months behind on a particular monthly book that I read that is not kind of one of the normals. It is called Knights of the Dinner Table. It is actually called Knights of the Dinner Table magazine because it is an RPG gaming magazine in addition to being a downright hilarious comic. It doesn't get a lot of press, but it has calmly built up over 260 issues over the last 10 years, and then it had existed before that as kind of a couple of page comic in magazines and gaming magazines early on in its career. And it is centered around the comic story is centered around a group of gamers in Muncie, Indiana, and their extremely crazy exploits as a sanctioned role-playing group for this game, which they call Hackmaster. And they've actually, this publisher, Kenzer and Company, has actually created a game which is based on the original first edition D&D rules. It's loosely based on, and they've done some upgrades since then. And so, like I said, the first half of this monthly book is this really funny gaming comic. And then the second half is a bunch of articles and regular contributions that are all based around role-playing games. And so it's a lot of fun because it allows me to kind of scratch two itches at once with the comics and the games. And it would be really cool if people would kind of check it out. I mean, it's obviously Diamond. It's available through Diamond because that's how I get it. I get it through the local shop. And I think I'm the only guy who gets it there, but that's okay. They don't seem to mind. They keep getting it for me, so it's cool. They also make it available through their website. If you're not near a local shop, you can order a subscription directly from them to get it, and it's a lot of fun.
And we'll have the link in our show notes.
Oh, sure.
Okay, cool. Now, when you talk about role-playing game notes, is it general for any kind of? I mean, is it primarily geared toward fantasy, or is it just? I mean, in general, what kind of?
It is, I would say, like maybe 70% fantasy. The deal is that the company, the Kenzer and Company, they do role-playing games as well, and they have games from several different genres. They have a western that they put out called Aces and Eights. They just not a couple of years ago they created a game which was actually based inside the comic. They had one of the characters in the comic had come up with this game that was called Dawg, DAWG, and it's basically this little kind of. It was intended as this simple little role-playing game, which is just the adventure of being a dog, and like pack mentality and all of that type of stuff. And so it was fairly popular in the comics, so they made it an actual game. And go ahead, categorize that, I dare you. But so a lot of it is based on I'd say more than half is based on their properties. But even that, I mean, the rest of it is completely generic. It can be used for adapted to any system. And honestly, a lot of what they do for their own systems is stuff that could be adapted for other systems too.
Okay. All right. I was
That's
just
a
curious.
plus.
Yeah. I've seen the comics. I kind of flipped through, but I've not checked it out enough to see. So that's why, hence the question.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Les.
I got pretty much nothing. I think about the only thing that inspired the wife and I was watching a show called Ghost Adventures, which was shown or was filmed local up near Denton. Half of the show was in Denton. I think the other portion was in DeSoto, which they kept calling Des Odo, and I wanted to reach across and slap them. But they were looking into a spirit sighting in a location south of Denton called Goatman's Bridge.
Well, that sounds ominous.
It really is, because the story is there was a black man that was raising goats. The clan came, got him, and hanged him from the bridge. And this group, of course, is similar to Ghost Hunters or several of the paranormal television shows. They had contacts when they were doing sessions right there at the bridge and areas around it. My wife attended NTSU, which is now the University of North Texas, and she was scratching her head trying to figure out where this was in relation to Denton. And it's an area west of I-35 between Argyle and Hickory Creek. I looked it up on the computer just to see what it was, to calm her down enough that she could enjoy the rest of the show. And it was really kind of spooky to see them hold a session there, try to contact the spirits, because they were under attack at times, and that was kind of scary. But it was interesting, and that may have been a semi-high point of my week.
Do you watch a lot of those ghost shows?
If Gina can find one, she will watch it. And it may even be a third-time rerun, but she'll sit and watch it. Mm. She is fascinated by the spirit world outside of Ouija boards. She has nothing to do with a Ouija board.
Why? Seems like a natural progression.
But she believes that it is a unit that will release bad spirits.
Oh, okay. So she takes it seriously. Okay, I get you.
She takes it very seriously.
I get you.
Yeah.
No, I can see why she wouldn't want to fiddle with them then.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, if she was at Goatman Bridge and was touched on the shoulder, believe me, the dust would be, it'd take about 30 minutes for it to settle, because she would be running so fast.
She would beat you home. And you're driving the car.
And I am driving the car. So, yeah, but she enjoys it, and I do enjoy watching them also, because there are instances where I have seen things happen, and it's kind of cool to sit there and go, oh, did you see that? And of course they come back after the commercial and show you what happened.
Of course, because that's how they pay the bills, but yeah.
Yeah, we might want to take the time out sometime down the road and kind of talk about those shows and that kind of thing. I have some hot sports opinions about those things.
Could be interesting.
Mm-hmm. Since we're kind of on the topic, y'all realize that Ghost Hunters just finished up on Sci-Fi. They just aired
Yes.
their final episode for Sci-Fi.
Are they going away, or are they moving to another network?
They're moving apparently from they're moving to another network. But some of the stuff, because I first heard about this and started kind of investigating, seeing some of the stuff that's been posted, and it was not. I don't think it was an amicable parting of the ways. So
Oh.
yeah.
And that strikes me as odd because they've been running for 10 years.
10 to 12, something like that. Yeah, that was a show I used to watch religiously when it first came on, and like I said, we really need to talk about this for another day because we can talk about that and some of the other stuff. So
Put it on the calendar, man.
yep, I'm making notes right now. Alrighty, for me, nothing this past week. Not much I can say. I just been kind of working on a lot of side projects and stuff regarding the fellowship, so I really hadn't had. I mean, I've caught up on some of my reading, but nothing too fancy or just oh my god type thing. So, which is good because I needed to get some work done. So,
Getting caught up feels nice.
mm-hmm.
Someday I'll have that feeling again. But anyway.
Woohoo! Yeah. Alrighty. Before we get into this week's topics, I want to take a moment to thank our sponsors, Make Mine Indie, Peter Smitty's online catalog for indie publishers. They are a proud sponsor of the Fellowship, and we do thank them so very, very much. And Things from Another World, we were happy to be allied with them. If you go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, and click on our sponsors page, you'll see some of the updates of the specials that Things from Another World running. Also, you can click on the link for Make Mine Indie. The current catalog is fall 2016.
Mm-hmm.
You can go there. It's free to download. A lot of good books there. You ought to check them out and see what you think.
Yeah, there's actually some of the stuff they have listed in there have some brief reviews written in the book,
Yep.
in the catalog. There are previews, so that you can take a look at some couple of pages for each of them, and there's some really beautiful stuff in there. It's usually a treat to take a look through that stuff.
About 130 pages, if I'm not mistaken. It's a lot. There's a lot of good stuff. Let's just say it that way.
It's 180 pages.
Oh, okay.
The fall one's 180.
Okay,
Ton,
I may be thinking of
maybe
the summer one
summer
being
one.
130. Yeah.
Yep.
Alrighty. So even more than I thought,
Yeah.
or I remembered. Yeah.
A lot of stuff you may not have heard of, and you will be glad you did hear of it when you see the stuff in this catalog, because there's some really, like I said, some really beautiful stuff in there.
Mm-hmm. And current specials that Things from Another World are running are their regular deals. 40% off sale on comics, statues, toys, and merchandise. 30% off select pre-order manga titles. And 50% off Nick and Dick comics, which it's not just comics, but it's also graphic novels or trades. So when you're on our sponsors page, if you go click on the Things from Another World icon to the left, it'll take you to their page, and they'll let them know that we sent you that direction. And a lot of good stuff there too. A lot of good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Alrighty, for this week, I was kind of inspired by a post from another website, Bronze Age Babies, who I follow on Twitter, but I've been actually checking out their website before I started following them on Twitter.
I think we've used them for inspiration before, also.
Yes, we have. We've done it a couple times. Yeah. So obviously they're coming up with some good ideas that kind of get us thinking. And what got me thinking this time was a post regarding best anthology titles. and checking out the posting, which we'll have in our show links,
Hmm.
show notes. That's not what came to me. I was thinking, why aren't there really any anthology books now? And there's still kind of a couple, but it just looking back then, there were so many, and now it's more of a novelty. It may be something that may be a short run or maybe just a one shot or something like that. So I kind of was thinking for this week we would ask I would ask the question, why is that not popular anymore? And I'm gonna just open it up to the floor and somebody give their opinion, or do I have to pick somebody?
I'll start.
Okay.
Currently, I know of two titles that are anthology, and one is Dark Horse Presents, which will give you a varied look at titles and various comics. The other is a fairly new one called Island, which is very unusual, very obscure type stories. They're very well done and good to read. Yet, with the public, and I'm not really sure why, but anthologies are not a strong point. We've made comment about them before, and I am a big proponent of that kind of storyline. Just prior to that, DC finished off their Legends of Tomorrow, which was 6 issues.
Yes.
And in that, they had 4 to 5 different stories going. One of them, I think, went 4 issues, another went 2 issues, and then 2 or 3 of them ran the full 6. It was, yeah, it was a pricey edition to read, but you got a cross section of the DC universe with it, and that to me was top notch.
Well, and it
It
apparently inspired at least a TV show.
Actually,
actually quite the reverse.
Oh, great. That's what I get for not watching Legends Tomorrow. They just stole the title from it,
That exactly.
huh?
You mentioned it was pricey, but there was also a higher page count too. So I mean, you were paying for the additional pages too,
yes, each was square bound.
and square
Uh,
bound. Yeah.
so it
Oh,
was like 60 pages, 64 pages, something like that. And I thought they had some really good stories. In fact, there is one of the series that is going to come out with its compilation book here in 2 weeks, and that's Sugar and Spike. So I'm hoping that DC takes an idea and says, hey, we can do this. This is viable for us. Uh, I'm going to step back. Go ahead. Somebody else talk.
Okay, Mikey.
somebody else throw some more examples out there. All
Sure, why
right.
not?
Yeah, see, I had Island on my list too. And I say list like we were collecting lists. We weren't really collecting lists. Another one that I won't say found because I get a notice about it every week in my inbox. Um, and one that may not get thought about so much over here in the States is 2000 AD. I mean,
Yep.
that's been a weekly book for, well, they just hit issue
They just
2000 about a month ago.
yep.
So you start thinking about Superman having a lot of issues and Thor and all of those, however many total issues they have. 2080's got over 2,000 issues, and there's usually three or bits and pieces of 3 or 4 stories in there. They'll run handful of issues, and it's just a nice. I check it out occasionally just for fun, and there's usually some fun stuff in there. They get a pretty interesting array of creators working on stuff there too. So that's a fun one. Another one, and this I half expect to get some argument about this, mainly because it's not consistent. It kind of had a resurgence here recently. Now that I'm thinking about it, I haven't seen an issue in a while. But creepy is kind of, I mean, it's pretty horror specific, and its companion eerie, which I definitely haven't seen in a while. But I want to say they were doing creepies again a year or two ago, and I think they were doing them quarterly. But it would be a pretty good sized book, and they would have several short horror stories in there. There wasn't anything that stretched across issues, but they would do nice little short pieces, and again pulling various different creators into it. And so I don't know if I'm going to jump the gun with this here, but one of the reasons that I see that maybe these aren't as popular as they used to be is to an extent I'm not even going to touch the economics of it, but I, I suspect that a lot of the fan base, to put it bluntly, a lot of people have their favorite creators. They have their favorite writers and their favorite artists, and they tend to follow those people. And a lot of times they'll pick up other titles along the way, and somebody else will come and write the book that creator X was writing, and they'll keep buying that, and then over time they build up this huge pull list that almost all of us have. But so I wonder, and with anthologies, they don't always have the A-list creators. I mean, some of them do, and a lot of them are usually real excited when they do. But it's not as big a thing as it once was, and so I almost wonder if, in addition to that, the creator-owned movement is kind of starting. I mean, I think the anthology was falling by the wayside before the creator-owned movement started. But I wonder if that's kind of like the final nail in the coffin to an extent, because people don't have to submit to anthologies anymore. They can just create their own entire book and get it put out there and sell it. Am I crazy?
No, that kind of makes
Um,
sense. I my thinking was creators probably plays a part into it, but there may not be a significant pool for if you got 5 or 6 stories and they're basically, let's just say for the sake of discussion, they're horror. Since you talked about we talked about eerie and creepy already, let's just go ahead and say that they're short horror stories.
Mm-hmm.
There's really not like a main character that would be, or something like that that would be a draw to that issue unless it's once again for the sake of discussion the main story being say Dracula.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm just wondering if that has something to do with it. That there's really not a draw. If there's not a creators and there's not a certain character that you go, oh, okay, I need to get that. That they're just, I don't want to say generic, but I mean they're just stories of whatever you want to say, like horror or fantasy or sci-fi or something, whatever. Am I crazy about that?
See, and I think I can drag Les back into this by going with with his comment that he kind of regrets that it's falling by the wayside. But see, he's the weird one here. Well, not here specifically, but in general, because he's the guy who's really, and I say that because I'm in the same vein. He's the guy who's interested in finding new talent. He's the one who wants to see something new and different from a new and different creator, and
Right.
that's something that flips his skirt, for lack of a better metaphor, because I can't think of a better one right now. So in a way, he's like the perfect audience for that. But I don't want to call Les a dying breed, but there's certainly fewer people with those kind of interests out there anymore. The interests
Right.
are a little more mainstream in nature by people looking for a specific creator or, like you say, a specific character or a specific property of some other sort kind of thing.
It's definitely a safer bet.
Hmm. Totally.
Now, I look back and DC was putting out Showcase back in the 50s, and it would run 2, maybe 3 stories in it. Later, Action Comics Weekly was running 4 stories, 5 stories, Thomas.
I can't remember. I know there was two, at least 2 or 3. There was at least 3.
And then one of them would be Superman, and all it was the 2 center pages. But I didn't have a problem with that because I got to see some characters I'd never even heard of in DC. I did not know of Wild Dog. I knew of Blackhawk. They brought it there. You had there was a Green Lantern story each one would carry about 4 pages, except the Superman story, and it would carry the 2 in the center. Later, and I say that this might be an anthology, although they were continuing stories, but Marvel had Strange Tales when they were running Doctor Strange and Human Torch and The Thing.
Mm-hmm.
They would split the comic book. They would every other issue had Torch and Thing on the cover, and the ones that they were not on, Doctor Strange was on. They also did, I think, Tales to Astonish with Captain America and Iron Man. Then that became Namor and Iron Man. Marvel also later did Epic magazine, which gave you several stories, several characters, and a lot of them were new. That's where you got characters like Dreadstar, and it ran for many issues to tell a story, but it was well worth the time. Dreadstar was a really good series to have.
I also remember, and Mike might remember this. Marvel also did Marvel Comics Presents, like in the 90s,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where they did a lot of the Wolverine Weapon X stories. There was about four different stories in there, and usually on the front cover you would have who they would consider to be the star of that, or the big story of that issue, and then on the back you would have images of the other stories that were going to be involved in the book.
The one publishing company that Mike was giving reference to with Creepy and Eerie, to me, they had some of the best artists. They had really good writers, but they had some of the best artists do their work, and just made me come back every issue. I had to see what was going to happen. The only, and I may be wrong here, but the only character that I remember that was a continuing character was Rook, which got a revival here just recently in one of the comics. Had its own title for a short, I think, 6-issue run. But I'm looking at this, and I'm almost thinking that the public is myopic in their taking of anthologies. Yeah. I think they want their story told, their character right there. I'll pay you $2.99 or $3.99 to see this character go for 32 pages.
Right. Well, there was also a time where there were backup tales, Action Comics, Detective, and some of the others. It was a main story, and then there would be an 8-page backup, and that kind of stuff doesn't really happen anymore. Now, the Suicide Squad, the Suicide Squad does that. Go ahead.
I would say there are a couple of titles out there that do something like that. Not very many.
Not very many. But just kind of leading back to what Les was just saying, that it's pretty much, from open to close, it's pretty much that one particular story.
Right, and where it's smart of them, like for example with the ones you're talking about with like Human Torch and the Thing, to have like the first half of the book be recognizable characters like that is kind of smart of them, just to draw people into buying the thing, and then you're almost hoping that they'll go ahead and read the rest of it kind of out of sheer boredom or whatever, and maybe find something they like to keep buying.
Yeah, something new that would go, okay, that's kind of interesting. I want to keep reading this, and then who
Right.
knows, it may spin off into its own thing.
Right, so they're not just buying it. I mean, they may initially buy it for Torch and Thing, but they're not just buying it for that six
You know,
issues down the road. They're buying it for all the other stuff too.
right?
I think that's the hope at that point. Again, I suspect that people are not willing to drop $4 on a book that they're only expecting to read half of, and they may not have the attention span anymore to read even the shorter material that they've never heard of, primarily because they've never heard of it and just don't have any interest.
To me, one of the most successful ones was DC's Wednesday Comics, which had 8 stories. It was a newspaper format. It was a weekly, and to me, I had to wait till to get all of the issues so I could read those 8 stories. And I think it ran 12 weeks. So you had 12 weeks of Batman, Supergirl, and so many others done by great artists and writers. It was really impressive. And then they came out with an oversized collection of it in hardbound. And that was money well invested too, because you had.
And that was it for your paycheck that week, right?
Yes. But this way, Mike, I could read it and not have to scramble through each of the issues of papers again
Right,
to
because
read the story.
you're only getting like 2 or 4 pages, or even maybe just one large page of any of these individual stories. And man, that's hard to just flip through and do that. So yeah, it's to get it collected together like that is ultimately what you want to see. But then once you're doing that, you might as well just be buying the regular book, because you're only doing it for the one character anyway. Even if you're actually doing it for 5 or 6 characters out of that set, you're only doing it for one at a time with the hardbound, and it's just, yeah, it gets complicated almost.
Very true, yes. Now, let me ask you guys this. You know my opinion. I want to have some anthology books out there. And I'm enjoying reading the Dark Horse Presents because that started when Dark Horse first fired up. And they gave you stories like Aliens and Predator in those books before Alien or Predator got their own series or miniseries or anything else.
Or the
Yeah.
monstrosity that they're doing now, the 17 issue Life and Death thing, which is awesome, by the way.
Yeah.
Yes, but you got to be introduced to Concrete, and Ron Randall had a title that I'm blanking on.
Well,
Well,
it
then,
was a female
even
lead, and it was good, really good stuff.
well, then more
even
recent.
more recent. Go ahead, Mike.
We're probably going to say the same thing.
Okay.
Even more recently, the Resident Alien series.
Exactly. Yep.
Yes,
Right. Peter Hogan and Steve Parkhouse. I mean, that's a series that was almost born out of Dark Horse Presents, and it's some really good stuff there. And I mean, they're working on they're in the middle of one now. In fact, I think I want to say issue 3 of the current
3.
one is coming out this week, somewhere in the very near future.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right.
yes.
Yeah. That's what I was basically going to say the same thing. Is you know that's one that because of Dark Horse Presents it was in front of readers and it was successful enough that they reprinted it, collected, and then now it's on its own. I mean, this is its first really, if I'm not mistaken. Is this the first miniseries that's all original that wasn't reprinted, or am I totally off base? Or is it the second or
Um,
third?
I I think I I heard an interview with Peter Hogan not too long ago, and I think he had said that they were written to be released all at once, but Dark Horse asked them to do it the way they did it to kind of just build the interest to see how that I
Okay.
guess to see how it worked. I'm not exactly sure what he said the reasoning was behind it, but yeah, I mean, and I mean any writer and any any creator basically is going to create something whole. I mean, they're not going to do it
Right.
in pieces like that anyway. I mean, ultimately the plan, the outline is going to be for the whole story, but how they break it up, it's yeah. I mean, that can be there can be a lot of influence exerted by an editor for that.
Would you guys like certain characters to be in a anthology? Something that a character that does not have his or her own title at this time, and possibly work toward seeing them once a month or once every 2 months for 10 to 16 pages of a book, and have three
Well,
stories or four stories in each book.
well, that's certainly the way to test the waters to see if there's enough interest for someone to carry on their own book. But do I necessarily have to have something like that? No. I mean, if there's something out there that I read about it and go, well, that might be interesting. I might pick it up. You know,
Right.
if it
See,
sounds like interesting stories, it's going to be interesting stories.
yeah, and see, you got to remember we're coming at it from same angle you are. We're interested in seeing something new and interesting. I don't necessarily need to
Right.
see a character that I just want to see. I don't have a list of background characters that I want to see brought into the foreground. Well, I mean I do, but there isn't one in particular that I'm like, well, maybe if they did this, well, sure, but that's not why I'm going at it. That's not why I'm going at an anthology. I want to see what new and interesting stuff they think they have, so that I can see if I agree or not. And then I might go ahead, like with Resident Alien, and start picking up their books when they start coming out in a whole format, as opposed to the piecemeal you get in anthologies sometimes. But yeah, I mean, I don't know that I could just come up with a list of specific characters that I would like to see in that format. I would like to see them. If I want to see them in that format, I want to see them in a 6-issue miniseries or whatever. It's not specific to that. I can't, off the top of my head, I can't think of any specific characters, but I want to see what's new coming down the line. You know, I
And
don't.
I know that there are a couple of horror titles out there right now as anthologies. Cinema Purgatorio and Tales from the Dark Side.
Mhm.
Those are out there, and those were more or less, I believe, originally done as one piece units, but they decided to chop them to make them a series.
Right. Another one that just popped into my head that I remember. I mean, there's only been one issue so far, but Star Trek Waypoint. I mean,
Yeah.
it's Star Trek clearly, but it's also spanning through the different incarnations of Star Trek, and there's the issue one had two different stories. If they're going to keep doing that, I mean, I think that works pretty well. I think it's pretty cool for that.
Yeah. And if I'm not mistaken, Dark Horse did Star Wars tales back in the day too. That was an anthology book. So
Yes, yes, I did.
I mean, there's some out there now, and there's been a few over the years. It's just not as prevalent as it was.
I think there's more than we realized initially when we started thinking about
Yeah.
this because we keep
Yeah.
thinking of new ones. We
Yeah.
sat and focused on this for a week thinking about what we were going to come up with on this. we each came up with a short list, and then now we're sitting here talking about it together and coming up with. I mean, we've probably doubled our list since we've been sitting here.
Yeah.
So obviously they're out there. They're just maybe they're not as prevalent as we would like for them to be. Maybe there's not as much advertising for them to an extent.
There's certainly not enough PR for them.
Right.
But that's kind of unfortunately the nature of the business. It seems to be the stuff that gets promoted. The stuff that gets promoted is stuff that really doesn't need to be promoted. It's stuff that there would already be some interest for it in the first place, and I kind of get that to a degree, but unfortunately that leaves some of the ones that deserve some attention. Only way it's going to get it is through the word of mouth from either us as podcasters or other podcasters, or just readers in general. Say, hey, you really need to check out this book.
Right, and I mean, you talk about podcasting. I look at it from a reviewer standpoint.
True.
Honestly, it's kind of hard to review an anthology issue because I mean, there's just not. It's hard to get a feel for any kind of story in however few pages they put in there. I mean, I mentioned Creepy earlier. I loved reading Creepy, but I could never find a way. I mean, I probably reviewed it once, and that review probably sucked because it's hard to it's kind of hard to get your head around that much material because Creepy was at least a double-sized issue because it was quarterly, and B, that many different shorts. I mean, some of those stories are 4 pages long, and it's
Right.
hard to talk about 8 stories with the limited amount of space you have for a review. And I mean, admittedly, we do fairly short reviews, but even doubling the size of the review we do, it's hard to cover that and make any sense with it other than just say, hey, check this out. Might as well just be tweeting about it. But like that said, yes, I mean, I like anthologies. It's not. I don't not review them because I don't like them. I don't review them because they're hard to review, and it's hard to attract people's attention to them because a lot of times you're not getting enough of a story to use the story to attract the attention, and you're also not getting the well-known creators to attract attention to, and it's just difficult. I mean, I wish that wasn't the case.
Okay. Any final words before we decide to move on with this week's picks?
Just more anthologies, please.
Yeah, we are kind of the target audience. And unfortunately, that target audience is fairly small, and I mean that's where
That's the problem.
that's where the economics play into it, is that it's a small target audience.
Yeah.
Well, I remember also, sorry to bring this up now, but I talked about Showcase earlier, and then DC came back with Showcase for 2 years and ran 2 12-issue anthologies. And you had like 3 stories in each issue, and a story may run 4 to 6 issues, anywhere between 3 and 6 issues, and then it would be swapped out for something else. And I remember those because they had some top talent there to bring you these stories. And of course, the big publishing can do just that. They can bring you those big writers and or artists. Dark Horse does that now with their presents, but they've been pretty consistent at bringing you some of the best around and bringing you concise stories that run anywhere from 3 to 6 issues.
You know what? I just thought of another one that I would love to see again.
Okay.
Real Science Adventures.
Yes, I would.
The Atomic Robo anthology series. Fun stuff.
That was fun stuff, and hopefully they give it a thought again.
Yep.
Alrighty. Anything else?
I think if we don't stop now, we're never going to.
Yeah, okay.
How true.
Alrighty, with that said, we'll take a short break and be back for Weekly Fix. And we're back. It's time for our weekly picks, and I'm leading off this time. Woohoo! My first pick is from Marvel. It is Amazing Spider-Man, Renew Your Vows. It's a new series. I'm assuming it was a continuation of the short-lived series that came out last year, which featured Peter Parker and Mary Jane Watson being married and having a daughter, Annie, who had powers. But there seems to be a little bit of switch with this one because apparently Mary Jane also has spider abilities. So this might be kind of interesting. It's written by Gary Conway, who was a big-time Spider-Man writer back in the day. He's the one who killed off Gwen Stacy and the original Green Goblin and all that. And with art by Ryan Stegman. Yeah, it ought to be interesting. That would be pretty cool. And I know that's going to... And I can see... that's going to make a lot of people happy because I know there was a lot of the fans are really upset when Marvel dissolved the marriage between Peter and MJ to go with the path of him being a little bit more of a
player.
Yeah, I guess something like that. Yeah,
the single life.
So it should be an interesting read. Should be fun. Mikey, what you got?
I have no shock here. I've got a couple of Image books. The first one is Glitter Bomb. Number 3 is coming out this week, and this is written by Jim Zub and drawn by Jabril Morissette-Fan. If you haven't heard of this yet, what the hell have you been paying attention to? But if you haven't heard of this yet, seriously, it is the story of a middle-aged-ish actress in Hollywood trying to get by, trying to keep food on her table for her little boy, who, let's just say she has an incident on a brief trip to the beach, and that there's a lot of tentacles involved, and this is definitely a bit of a horror story if you're into that sort of thing. If you're not, it might still be fun. Who knows? But yeah, number 3 is coming out this week, and this is a really fun. It's a really fun departure and a really fun kind of story about the Hollywood machine.
Woohoo!
Is it done as a comedy or?
Well, with Zub, you're going to get some chuckles along the way, but no, this is definitely not really a comedy. This is drama / horror. So far, anyway. I mean.
Dun dun dun.
Yeah.
If it's Zub, it's got to be good.
I think so, but I'm biased.
Yeah. A little bit.
Just a bit.
But that's okay.
Yeah.
Les?
I'm going to open with Boom Studios' title Namesake. Number 1 is coming out. This is by Steve Orlando and Jacob Rubelka. In this science fiction story, the 2 planets, Earth and Ecte, overlap in their dimensions every 7 years. In Ecte, the thought of alchemy is not a pseudoscience, but it is the driving force of industry on their planet. There's a character, Jordan Molossus, who was born of Earth and Ecte, and he was kind of abandoned by both. In the story, though, he receives his father's ashes and attempts to put his parents to rest before Ecte disappears for another 7 years. I don't know if this is a mini, a maxi, or an ongoing, but just the thought of the two worlds being right there at that one time and him trying to set things right between the two Earths, between the two planets. I'm pretty intrigued. I want to see what goes on with this one.
Yeah, that was on my radar too. I saw something about that, and sounds interesting.
Me too. And kind of like Steve Orlando's work anyway, so I was just going to check it
Yeah,
out anyway.
very cool, very cool. My next pick is the last of the initial run or initial titles from DC's Young Animal imprint, Mother Panic, written by Jody Hauser, who is also writing Faith for Valiant, and illustrated by Tommy Lee Edwards. And it is about a c'est l'habitante. That's it's kind of interesting. I have not heard that one.
Yes,
Really?
a celebrity debutante. Yes.
Yeah, well, I knew it's celebrity and a debutante, but I've just never heard it. So that's fine.
Yeah.
But who's apparently bored and decides to become a vigilante, and this is, of course, this is all taking place in Gotham City. So, okay, anyone want to take a bet how long before a certain person in Gotham City runs into her? But it sounds kind of cool. I've been enjoying the other titles from Young Animal. The most recent was Cave Carson, and just thought that was great. So I'm excited to see where this one goes.
Like you said, it is in Gotham, and that certain person does appear on one of the variant covers for the first issue.
Okay.
So you know that this is going to have big effect.
Yep.
I'm excited about this one.
Sounds pretty cool.
Ought to be fun. Yeah, that ought to be fun. Mikey.
So my other image title for this week, and I don't always pick image titles, but sometimes they put out a lot of good books at once. So my second pick is Green Valley. Issue number 2 is coming out this week, and this is written by Max Landis with art by Giuseppe Camuncoli. And this is, I mean, we're not very far into this yet, but it's a pretty cool story about a group of medieval knights whose world is about to be rocked, and things are changing dramatically in their little realms. And it's this is another one. I'm not sure if this is an ongoing or not. It will be interesting to see how things work if it is, given the first issue. But I'm intrigued. I like. It's not. If it's fantasy, it's pretty well disguised at this point. It seems to be just kind of straight medieval knights, and I don't have a problem with that at this point. The dialogue is very well done in issue 1, and I'm looking forward to that continuing in issue 2. So this is a fun one if you're into that sort of thing.
I haven't checked it out. I need to.
Let me ask you, Mike, rocked in what way? The fact that the idea of knights are dying, or is it
yeah, they're on the edge of war. They're on the edge of war with like this barbarian horde type group.
Okay.
And again, like I said, it was just one issue, so it will be interesting to see how far that goes, how rocked their worlds end up being. It definitely, the description refers to it as an epic adventure, and so I think issue 2 is going to give us a better sense of how epic it really is.
And leading up to a more epic.
Mm-hmm.
It's so epic.
Super epic.
It sounds like a good run.
Yeah, it's fun, and the impression I get is that Max Landis is he seems to be one of those love him or hate him types. And this I could be wrong, but I think this is the first thing of his I've read, so I'm curious to see where it goes and how it works.
Okay.
Okay. Cool. Bless.
I'm going to go the DC route on this choice. Batgirl and the Birds of Prey #4, written by Julie Benson, art by Claire Rowe, is kind of what I've been waiting for. In this issue, Batgirl, Black Canary, and the Huntress face the new Oracle and find they unlock a new mystery. So these previous issues, they're trying to locate who is now saying that they are Oracle because Batgirl, Barbara Gordon, was Oracle at one time. Now someone has usurped her and taken the title. Now we'll get to see how or who it is and why.
Dun, dun, dun.
Sounds exciting.
Mm-hmm.
I love a mystery.
Ruh-roh.
I was so trying not to go there.
Too late.
Yep.
Too late, I did. Okay. Actually, I've got an honorable mention, also from DC Comics. It is Adam Strange, The Silver Age, Volume 1. And this collects showcase issues 17 through 19 and Mystery in Space 53 through 74. These are the early stories featuring Adam Strange of how he was teleported to Ran and how he became the hero of the planet, and of course all his adventures there. I know this is right up Les's alley.
Oh, yes.
So some fun 50s and 60s sci-fi adventure. What could go wrong with that?
Mm-hmm.
When you read this, please take note that we've discussed it before, that the artist would do the cover and then hand it to the writer and say, make a story. So the writer had a big challenge there. And to get it into the amounted number of pages and have a solution to it right there. It was, to me, that's just nuts. But it's so much fun to read. And if you know that little nugget, it gets even more fun.
Very cool.
Definitely.
Anybody else have some honorable mentions?
I do.
Okay.
Actually, I have two. The first is from Titan Comics. It is The Mummy, #1. This is the Universal Monsters Mummy. This is written by Peter Milligan and Ernilson Frere. Now, what's interesting about this is it's gearing you up for the new movie next spring, starring Tom Cruise. And I'm kind of want to see how they change the story from the 1932 classic, or if they change it all that much. I'm sure they have to. My understanding is Cruise will be playing a military man rather than an archaeologist. And if I remember correctly, I believe the mummy is female in this one. The other title I have is Spirit Hunters #1 by Zenescope. It's written by Joe Bruscia and art by Sean Chen. We talked a little earlier about me watching the spook movie or spook shows, and this is a 12-issue series of paranormal investigators. I don't know if it's going to be one long story or if it's going to be several stories, but to me, anybody that was enjoying shows like Ghost Adventures or Ghost Hunters might sit down and enjoy this one too.
Cool.
Nice.
Yeah. Nice tie-in there to conversations we had off the air. But anyway.
Woohoo. Mikey, you got any
Oh,
honorable mentions?
gosh, no. I'm going to wear my fingers out on the show notes for this one anyway. I'm not going to add any more to this.
Okay, alrighty. Cool. any special mentions before we start wrapping things up?
Nothing springs to mind.
Okay. Alrighty.
Not here.
Okay. Okay, let's go ahead and get to our shout outs. As we do every week. Our first shout out is to May the Martyr for our awesome music opening and closing credits. We appreciate the guys for allowing us to use it. Thank you guys. You rock. Appreciate it. We'll have a link in our show notes, and of course, if you go to our podcast page on the website, you'll be able to click on a link to their Facebook page, I believe, and you can check out when they're playing next and access some of their music there. Also want to shout out to Potter and Family, hashtag Potter and Family on Twitter, for spreading the message of the fellowship. Really cool, nice group of people who put out some pretty cool podcasts out there, and we appreciate them spreading the love, and Mikey and I are doing our darnest to return the favor. Thank you guys. Anybody in particular we need to mention?
Not that I recall. I mean,
Okay.
just the usual suspects there. And if you're ever interested in finding another podcast to listen to after hours, after you listen to our show, if you want to hear another show about pretty much anything, go search up hashtag Potter Family on Twitter. There are a bunch of people. I mean, I think it's fair to say there are dozens, if not hundreds, of podcasters of various topics and ilks and genres and whatever. There are a lot of movie podcasts. There are actually quite a few comic podcasts and other general cultural type things. Search them up, download them. There's some music ones too, if you're into that. And download them and listen and check them out, because there's, like I said, there's a lot of great stuff there.
And it grows every day. It seems like there's always a new one every day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think we're not the new guys on the block anymore. I mean, there are other shows that have done fewer episodes than us. I mean, I hate to call us grizzled veterans at this point, but it's growing.
Cool. So much love to them. Thank you guys. And of course, shout out to you, dear listeners. Thank you for downloading and listening to our episodes. It's much appreciated. We always welcome your comments and questions and suggestions for the show or the website or just anything in general. We appreciate any communication we have from you. We have a question this week, Mikey?
I'm thinking we're going to steal Les's question that he asked us earlier. What are there any characters? What character would you like to see show up in an anthology, possibly on the way to having their own title?
Okay, that'll work.
Thank you.
And there are several ways you can contact us, either to answer that question or just anything else. You can go to our website, www.thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, and you can go to our About Us page, and there is a contact form there. Or you can email us, email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net, or you can contact us through social media. We are on Facebook, The Fellowship of the Geeks. That's all one word. And as we already mentioned, we are on Twitter, @FellowshipGeeks. Please follow us there, and you can contact us there. Mikey has his own personal Twitter account, @MikeyGeek, and I have one as well, @TomTCGeek. Please feel free to follow us up and just say, hey, following you guys, I've checked out the show, it's great, got a question, or whatever.
Yeah, that's not an exact script that you should use, but that sort of thing, you know.
Something along those lines, exactly. Exactly. Alrighty, any final thoughts before we sign off?
Sure, we should tell people to check us out and possibly shoot us a rating or a review on whichever particular device/app they choose to listen to us on, like maybe iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play, and they can even catch us on YouTube if they would like to do that, if they're just sitting at their desk at their computer at work and want to listen to us but can't use one of those other apps for whatever reason, hop on YouTube. We're there. Check us out.
Yep, that's true. Thank you very much, sir. Anything else?
I'm pretty much tapped.
Okay.
I think we're good for this week.
I think we're good.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. I hope you had a good time. We always do when we do these episodes, and I hope that comes across. It's always a blast talking about comics, whether it's the fun side or the serious side, good, bad, ugly, whatever. It's always fun to kind of discuss this stuff. So I hope you had a good time. And until next time, read more comics and support your local stores. We thank you for listening to the show. Comments, suggestions, and questions can be sent to email@thefellowshipofthegeeks.net. You can follow us on Facebook at The Fellowship of the Geeks and on Twitter at Fellowship Geeks. Until next time,